Now, are you feeling rushed? Do you have a second to explain
I'm
how
not
you
rushed at
did
all.
the karaoke?
No, I'm
So,
not
what
rushed at
was the,
all. Yeah, the karaoke, and I want to do it again because I think I would do it a little bit differently
yeah,
than I did last time. So it's good to talk through that a little bit. The way I did karaoke was, of course, we used Zoom as the way for everybody to who wanted to participate. They were on the Zoom call, and I didn't use Zoom to stream it out. I brought it into OBS and streamed it out because I wanted to. I didn't want their watermark, but more importantly, I wanted to control what the stream actually looked like in terms of where the people were showing up in the windows and that kind of thing. So, so I used OBS and just captured the display in order to stream it to the TV. But everybody was on the Zoom call, and we had the Google Doc open, and where people were putting in the songs that they wanted to sing, and we just kept a running list there. And I would pull up the YouTube video on my computer and use loopback to feed the audio from YouTube into my microphone that Zoom was using. So what everybody was hearing was basically my microphone, you know, my input, which was not just my microphone, but it was also the input of YouTube, and everybody could hear that and sing along. And that seemed to work, except for I think depending on where people were, geographically, I think there was some sense of a delay there. Not for the person singing, obviously, because they're just singing along to the music, but listening back on it, it was sort of like, oh man, it's fun, but it's also a little like off, right? So, depending on where people were. So that I was using loopback because at the time I didn't realize that Zoom has a feature to bring in your computer audio when you're sharing your screen. And so I wonder if instead of doing it that way, if the person singing shared their screen with computer audio and sang along to it, if that would work.
yeah,
Because
interesting.
then, it should be in sync, I would think, because it's coming from their computer. So even if you're far away or whatever, I'm hearing you the same time you're hearing the computer from your own, the audio from your own computer. So that's one way that I'd like to try it out. And the other thing that I've heard is really useful, not and just in general, even just like for the idea of movie nights, is this site called Watch Together. Have you heard of this one?
I have.
It's very
Yeah.
similar to SyncTube back in the day we used to use, but the idea is like you create a watch together room, everybody goes to that URL, and you can control as the host, and people can create their own playlists, and you can collaborate together on the playlist of YouTube videos, but everybody watching it is in sync. And however they do it, if somebody hits play, if someone hits pause, it does the same thing on your computer. And so the idea behind that is that because it's in sync, everybody can listen to the audio from Watch Together with headphones on. And that's how they're hearing it, as opposed to one person trying to pipe it in from Zoom, and you've got that bandwidth delay of it having to go out to everybody. So that was another
I
method
like
that I
that.
think would be worth playing around with a little bit. And it's also that would be cool because then you probably saw I had some issues with like let me find the song, and I'm going to YouTube searching, and they're like no, not that one, choose that one. If people were able to build the playlist for you, that's your karaoke list, right? Like it's just like, okay, who's next? Oh, I put that URL in, this is me, and you hit play and start going, right? So that
So,
way people are doing the work.
do you do the watch together in a separate space, and then people get pushed into the Zoom? Like, how are you managing people coming in and out of Zoom? Is there another way to manage that flow?
Um, well, so we didn't worry too much about Zoom bombing. We didn't let everybody know the URL. I think it got listed through DMs and through private emails and things, so people had emails with the URL that they needed. We didn't use passwords because of that. They could just, as long as people had the URL, they could get into the room to start singing. So I think it would be the same way. You would give everybody the link to the room, and it doesn't even have to be Zoom at that point. You could use Google Hangouts, you could use Whereby. It doesn't really matter. But the idea is that you're using that room is just to see everybody, and you could make somebody, you could pin their video to be bigger than everybody else's and say you're on, but then everybody's getting their audio from that watch together room. And so that's
Gotcha.
where the audio is coming in through there. Now, if you were going to stream it back out, you'd have to have one person who's basically the producer slash host that has OBS on, and they're taking the video capture
Yeah.
from there and the audio from Chrome from that watch together room.
And that's the thing, right? The watch together is kind of like what they would use when you would have group gaming,
Yeah.
right? You would all have the same audio, and it was like a separate audio server for a particular game
You're
server.
thinking of oh god, what was that thing called? Was it Team Viewer or no? That
It
was
was team.
it
It
was
was
Team
team
something.
something.
TeamSpeak.
Yeah, TeamSpeak.
TeamSpeak. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Same idea, but with Watch Together, it's like a YouTube video that's synchronized between everybody. And so if I pull up a video, we can all watch it together. And if I hit pause, it's paused for everybody, and it's supposedly in sync. So,
Telling you, I've heard. So here's my idea for you. I heard a lot of people reach out to me about, are we doing a karaoke again? And I know I didn't want. I can't say yes because I don't want to put that pressure on. But I also think like it would be an interesting test with the watch together. But then it would also be interesting if we could get enough people who understand this to kind of do a round robin of like, a DS106 sponsored or a DS106 event where we're doing a karaoke once
yeah.
a week. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't know if it's when it becomes work, if it becomes overhead, but like,
It's not
I
work.
love the idea.
Oh, I love it. I think the issue is that with the time zones, like, I mean, we were doing karaoke. It was like 3 in the afternoon on a weekday,
Yeah,
and I was like,
exactly.
okay, because
Didn't
this is just
stop
me.
you.
This is just me personally, but I drink a beer or two when I when I play and sing a little karaoke, and also, everybody's at home with their families, so there's a
Yeah.
balance there. I think I went into the office for that so that I would get away from people. So I think it's just about timing because obviously people let loose a little bit more in the evenings, and I know it was evening for you all there, and probably for a lot of people in the UK, whereas it was like afternoon or even on the the Pacific
Yeah.
side, but like noon, so
Yeah.
for it to start. So it's just a weird time for people to be like, all right, let's do some karaoke. I think to do it, you would probably want to have a long period and just kind of like, I mean, if you had enough people participating, you could stretch through different time zones. So you could almost, whether you started earlier for the late night folks on the European side and kind of go through into the evening, and then on the West Coast they're picking it up until,
I
midnight
think
their
that's
time
right,
is 3
actually.
a.m. and you're basically crossing all the various time zones.
I
So,
think at the point where I make sure that I have fiber, I could do the stream from the Italy.
hmm
We could run that there and then hand it off to someone on the East Coast as you guys are waking up,
hmm
or even then the UK, they're an hour, but still it would be the East Coast as you guys are like, okay, we're off. We want to do a little karaoke for like
mm,
after hour, happy hour, and then the West Coast, and then maybe it dies there, maybe it goes to New Zealand, but like
yeah,
that could actually,
Uh,
for one evening,
right,
evening could last like 7 or 8 hours.
exactly. Yeah, I think that would be fun. And if you had enough people in the various time zones because what did we do it? We did it for
2 hours.
2 hours at the time,
Yeah.
which was fun, and then that would have taken us till 5 or so. Like if on the UK side, even if you did it even a little later or whatever. But I mean, y'all started. I
Yeah.
guess it was 8 o'clock your time, or I guess it was 7 for you, right?
It was 8 for us, 9 for, no, was that right? We stopped at
It was
11,
it
so it
was
was 9 for us. It was 8
gotcha. It was
for,
8 for
for
you.
Britain.
So you could go even a little earlier too if you wanted to.
Totally.
But even if you went later, then the UK folks they were probably still going. Like they probably could have done another hour or so, and then it's six
Exactly.
o'clock on the East Coast, and somebody's picking it up into it, and then PST goes. So as long as you have enough
Exactly.
people in the various time zones to where everyone doesn't feel like, well, in order to do it, you all got to be together at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Maybe you
That's
tune
right.
in, but you're not singing. So,
I agree.
but
And I think that's right. And I think, I mean, okay, because we'll talk about that offline too, but I do think that there are people who are like, that would be super cool. And just even to figure out the rig, and like
Yeah.
how the pieces work, because everybody was pretty mellow, even though I know post facto you're like, well, we were completely out of sync and it wasn't what I
Oh,
wanted, but like
it was still a
it
blast.
was
I mean,
awesome.
yeah, it was still a blast. And I guess that's the part where I would miss if the time zone thing had more people not participating together. Like I think you'd still want a contingent because part of the fun of it is
Yeah,
having a group of people. Like it's no fun singing karaoke if no one's listening, right? Like it's not like
yeah,
DS106 radio where you don't really care if no one's listening. If in karaoke, like you need the feedback of people like, "Oh, that's amazing, that's awesome," even if it's just a small group of people. So yeah,
yeah,
but I would miss the crowd, right? Like you wanted a decent enough contingent to show up at those different times to where it's not like, well, all right, I'm the East Coast and it's just me singing here, you know. I'll do it, don't get me wrong, but
me too.
yeah,
That's the problem.
yeah, it's true. But
Yeah,
anyway, so yeah, I think it's a blast. I think we should definitely set up a time to play around with it again and just say like, this is the date, we're gonna try this out, you know. If you're interested, throw your name here. Here's the settings, and that Google Doc worked really well, I think, for letting folks know here are some basic, not for lack of a better term, like ground rules, like just some guides on,
yeah,
you're going to want to have headphones on. You're going to go to this URL. You're going to hit Zoom here. Like we could give the Watch Together URL, start making the playlist and that kind of stuff. So,
yeah,
it's a good way to coordinate ahead of time for folks too. I think if we wanted to start a Google Doc and start saying like, all right, we're going to do it on this date, who's in, who's going to come in on what times, and that kind of stuff, and just schedule some of that out, then we would
yeah.
know like what's going to happen a little bit, which would be cool.
Yeah, I agree. No, that's super cool.